Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is just gone 1 o'clock, so I'm going to get started. Hopefully everyone's with us. There's not that many in the chat room just yet, but that's fine. If you're having any difficulty getting into the chat room, you just need to sign in with a Google account, or you can use the Facebook account as well, I think, if you want. But if you don't want to join in the chat, that is fine, don't worry. So, hi, welcome to Compliance Made Easy, and thank you for giving up a bit of your time this afternoon to join us to talk about this. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just getting a bit of feedback. Then I'll mute myself. There we go. It's just on 1 o'clock. Let me just cut that. That's my page where I'm joining the chat. Okay, there we go. That's that taken care of. So, yeah, thanks for joining us this afternoon. We're going to talk about Compliance Made Easy. And this is just something that we work on a lot with our clients, sorting out mandatory training. And it's just an area I know a lot of organizations have a bit of trouble with. And it's one of the reasons why you might choose to invest in an LMS in the first case. So it's really important to get that under control and feel like that aspect of your LMS is working for you. And I think that frees up the resources to then go on and really start exploring some of the more advanced things that your LMS is capable of. It's kind of about getting the fundamentals right so that then you're happy to go on and start doing all the great extra stuff. So what I'm going to run through today is the agenda. I'm just going to talk about a teeny bit about Think North, who we are and what we do, and then we'll move on to our main topic for today, Compliance Made Easy, and then we will have questions at the end. Now, you're welcome to drop any questions into the chat at any time throughout the presentation. If it's appropriate and I can take them at the time, I will address them there and then. Otherwise, I will save them for the end. Or if you want to save them for the end, just wait until the end and that's fine. So, who are we? We are Think North. My name is Matt Aspinall. I work as a learning systems consultant for Think North. And my background, I've worked with a variety of LMS systems. I previously worked within the food sector, but since joining Think North, I've started working with all the NHS clients that Think North works with as well. And here with me today as well is our director, Richard Chambury. Richard will be participating in the chat, and he's our director. He has 15 years of experience within the NHS and healthcare and extensive learning management experience. And as for Think North, who are we? Well, Think North and Chambury Consulting, we are a platinum Totara LMS partner, which means that Totara LMS is our LMS of choice. That doesn't mean we work exclusively with Totara LMS, but if you come to us and you're in the position of needing one, that's what we're going to recommend and set up for you. We're a platinum partner, which means we've got a number of clients, which gets us that platinum status, and we're one of just a few Totara platinum partners in the UK. There's our little client map there, and we also partner with Think Associates in the South, who have another half dozen clients, including a number of organisations they work with around ESR. And as part of our association, we have 2 original Totara code authors who work with us, which is really great. It means we can get in and really make that system work as we need, make any changes as needed. And our clients span the public and private sector, mainly in healthcare. But as I've said, we have experience, in a variety of sectors. The services we actually provide are software provision. That's Totara LMS, but also some others, Mahara, Flowformer, and we also do e-learning design. But then the core of what we do as well is we act as a consultancy, and we can work with you on a number of projects around anything in the learning management domain. Some of the consultancy services we offer include setting up mandatory training, which we're going to talk about today, but also appraisal systems. If you want to get that up and running, we can help with that. And we're also looking at nursing revalidation for some of our clients as well. And that's something which we're going to explore in a later webinar. I'll just talk you through our upcoming programs. First event on here is the World of Learning Conference in Birmingham, which is on the 29th and 30th of September. We will be there at stand E60. So if you happen to be there, do stop by and see us. That'd be great to meet you. And then we've got 3 more webinars scheduled currently. We're talking about nursing revalidation on the 8th of October. We're going to do a general overview of the system on the 29th of October. And we're going to look at blending and learning on the 19th of November. I may mention these a little more as we go through, but today the focus is on Compliance Made Easy. So I hope that's okay as a little introduction there. So we're going to be using the live system as much as possible today. I've got a few slides prepared, but this isn't really a slide-heavy presentation. I'm going to try and spend as much time as I can showing you the system. The site I'm going to show you is a demo site. It's a really simple demonstration site we've just set up. I just want you to consider that the site is really highly customizable. We can change all aspects of the site's layout and appearance, and we do this for our clients. One of our clients actually has the site set up to look exactly like their internal I've forgotten what they call it. They have a name for it. Well, their intranet site, I'm trying to remember the name. But when you go from the intranet into the Learning Hub, when you go from intranet to Learning Hub, you won't really notice the transition because they have it themed just to look the same, which is quite a nice way of doing it. And that's something that we could set up for you if needed. Oh, I'm sorry, I've just tapped out of there. Okay, so I'm going to just move back into the live site and we'll talk about compliance made easy. Here's the sort of outline of what we're going to talk about. We're going to look at audiences, blend, certifications, and dashboards. They're the key elements of getting this under control. So audiences. Why do we use audiences? And how do they make compliance easy? The audience is Totoro LMS's way of grouping employees into custom-sized groups. And they're really, really flexible in the way they work. Before we go into the demo, I'll just show you the little organization we're working with. This is our organizational hierarchy. And yeah, you can understand it. I've gone with these characters because I'm hoping you can understand the structure of it quite simply. But if you look at this organizational hierarchy, it's only 7 employees. But this really does scale. It could be 700 or it could be 7,000 employees. We're just really simplifying it for the sake of the demonstration today. But it's a fairly complex hierarchy. We have different divisions. We've got the Looney Tunes division. We've got the Disney division. And we've got a number of different roles here. In terms of roles, I'm looking at what animal these employees are. So if we were going to do a training needs analysis for our organization and think about what training do we need to give these employees, there's kind of a couple of ways we could go about it. The first thing we could do is we could look and say, okay, Daffy Duck, what training does he need? All right, Minnie Mouse, what training does she need? And you may have done a training needs analysis like this, and you reach the end and you go, great, we know what training everybody needs. But what happens when the organization starts changing? What happens when we restructure, or when somebody leaves or somebody new joins? All of a sudden your training needs analysis is out of date. So that's why we use audiences to help make this simple. So I'm going to switch over into the live system. And here we are on our test, our demo site, sorry. And I'll show you how audiences work. I've got all of those employees set up. And I'm just going to come straight into our audiences section. Okay, now I've set up a few example audiences of different ways we may want to group these employees. I've created, first of all, an audience that just contains ducks, an audience that just contains mice. Let's start by looking at the one with all employees. This is all Acme employees. I've just used the rule of their organization is the Acme Corporation. And if we look who's actually in this group, we see everybody in there. But we can be way more complex than that. And sometimes you need to be. If you imagine your real organization, it's going to be pretty complex in the way it's structured. And for your training needs analysis, you may want to use really complicated rules. We may want to look at multiple aspects of that employee's data. So we can do that. Here's a simple example. We've created an audience that just contains the ducks. We've looked for anyone who works in Acme Corporation and whose position is duck. And it does exactly what it should do. When we look in there, we'll see all of our employees there. So it's fairly straightforward. Scrooge McDuck's still showing there from earlier as well. So there's all of our ducks. Doesn't matter what organization they're in. They can be in the Looney Tunes division or the Disney division, but we've pulled them in because of the organization duck. I'm going to show you just some of the rules we can use when we do this. This is the standard set of rules in Totoro. We can use any of these little bits of information about our people to create an audience. There's loads of data there. But in a real system, this would pull in all of your HR system data as well. So for our NHS clients, that means any data field you have in ESR, we can pull through into the system and use that to assign training appropriately. And what's more impressive is you can use any combination of these as well. You're not limited to just creating an audience based on one aspect of that data. You can combine them all in as many ways as you need. There's another really powerful feature in here that I'm going to show you. And this is how I've built my audience of Acme employees who are not ducks or mice. I'll come in there and show you this. The rule we've used on this is everyone who works in Acme Corporation and who is not a member of the ducks or mice audience. And that does exactly what you would hope. It pulls in our pig and our rabbit, exactly as you would hope. The reason this is really, really powerful is because you can very effectively ensure that a training needs analysis covers all of your organization and you know you're not going to miss anybody. If a new employee joins the organization and they're a new animal we've never seen before, let's suppose a dog joins the organization, it's fine. They'll get picked up into this audience and they'll be assigned the appropriate training for this audience. It's a really powerful feature. It's kind of essential for doing advanced work with assigning training, and it's something which I know is absent from some LMSs. It's a really, really great feature, and for some of our clients, that's really useful in terms of making sure everyone's assigned the appropriate level of training. So I'll show you how this assigning training to an audience actually works. If I come in and look at the mice audience, our members are just as expected. You will have Minnie Mouse and Mickey Mouse. If we look at the enrolled learning, we have assigned them manual handling for mice, the course and the certification. Now, that's really great because if a new mouse joins the organization, they will immediately see that they are assigned this training. So that's one of those things about making it easy. It's that I don't have to keep going in and monitoring who are the new employees, what am I assigning them. It's just done because I've created these effective rule sets. That's all taken care of for me by the LMS. And I think that's what we all want our LMS to do. We want it to be able to take care of these things for us. If I show you the audience of not duck or mouse, here we have enrolled them in the general manual handling, not the one for ducks, not the one for mice. They get the general one. So any new employees who don't fit into those targeted groups will get that training. It's a really nice feature. So that's it on audiences. I don't want to demonstrate too much. They're really versatile and we could talk about it for ages. But I think the important thing to think about is when you do your training needs analysis, you want to make sure that you're doing it in a meaningful way that's going to translate into good rules that help the LMS make this easy for you. I'm going to move on to our next topic, which is blending. Now, we're going to do a webinar called Blending and Learning, and we will go into great depth on this. When we talk about blending our learning, we're talking face-to-face classroom training in conjunction with e-learning and other self-led online learning. That's a really great way to create engaging learning experiences that your employees are going to really enjoy. But in this context of mandatory training, I think what's important to think about is how can we simplify this for our staff? How can we simplify it for the learners? How can we simplify it for the managers? And how can we simplify it for our trainers and our admin team? And I think in a lot of cases, the answer is use e-learning. If you can use e-learning for a piece of mandatory training, do it, would be my advice. Now, you might get a little nervous. You might go, well, what about our high-risk department and all the senior people there who really need a good understanding of this? Okay, fine. Target that department with face-to-face training. And if you think about it like that, you know, there's no reason why we can't use the audiences to target those higher risk positions where we need to. This actually means we can be really flexible and we can be a lot more relaxed about using e-learning. If someone only needs very basic training, they need to know the fundamentals of something, we just assign them a piece of e-learning or any other self-led learning. And that really simplifies the whole thing. It means less work for your admin team, less work for your trainers. It means you're spending your resources where you really need it. We get the mandatory training under control, and then you've got a great free team to really empower the organization and focus on that really important training. I think that's a really key point. We're going to explore ways of doing this in the future webinar, but I just wanted to talk about it with regards to mandatory training. I think it's important to really think about how you can simplify that. Okay, the next aspect is certifications. Certifications are how we refresh training in Totara. Now, you can build a simple course page and put as many resources in there as you like. It's based on Moodle, so it's got this great engine for building online learning content. You can string courses together into what's called a program, which is just a series of courses you need to work through. And better still, we can put them into a certification. I'm going to show you how a certification looks in the system. So if I come into here, I'll just find the certification I built. I'm not going to run through all the details. I just want to sort of show how flexible it can be. Here's manual handling for mice set up as a certification. We've set it up as a certification because there is a need to refresh this training. So if I come in and look at the, ooh, I've lost my mouse. That's a strange one. Hang on. There we go. If we come in and look at the content of this, you can see I've put the course manual handling for mice in as my initial path. I've decided I'm going to use that again for the recertification path because this is a fairly basic course. But this is a really, really powerful feature. We can define different content for the first time you get your certification to when you have to recertify. This is another one of those opportunities to really simplify this for everybody. If you've already completed a program and it's time for the refresher, you can ask yourself, can we simplify that refresh process? For instance, could we just ask the learner to complete a quiz to verify they still have the knowledge they need? If so, great, we consider them recertified. If they fail the quiz, okay, they can attend the training again. It's a really, really powerful way to simplify this process. When we assign it, we just choose which audiences need to complete it. So here I've assigned it to the Acme Mice, and we can set rules for when they have to do that first instance of it. So here the rule is complete within 1 month of your first login. If you think about what that means for a new employee at your organization, that means they can come onto the system, they see what training they've got as a new person, and they know when they need to complete it by. It's really quite powerful. And then with the certification, we have just loads of rules for how we want to get them through that refresh. So here, this one's just set to be to be active for 1 year, which is the standard. And when do we let them go and do that refresh? When does the window open? We say 1 month before. What that means here is 1 month before they need to refresh this training, they can go to their required learning page and they will see it there available to them. I just want to show you what that required learning page looks like. If I come into Mickey Mouse's profile here and he goes and looks at his required learning, he's going to see the training he's been assigned and that he needs to complete. So here is the program he's been assigned. He's been assigned the Acme Mandatory Training Program due on the 16th of December, sorry. And he's also been assigned the certification we were just looking at, Manual Handling for Mice, due on the 17th of October. So it's really easy for him to get in and access that training and see what he needs to do. And I think when we're talking about making compliance easy, we do need to consider the learner's point of view. If it's really complicated for your learners to find what they need to do, you're going to get a lot of resistance in completing it. Any barriers you put between the employee and completing the learning are just a pain for them. They don't want it. They want to know, what training do I need to do and how do I get at it? So I think making sure everything is pushed to this required learning page is a really easy way to take care of it. So that's pretty much it for the certifications. It's just a really great feature to make sure that this refresh training is handled on an ongoing basis, and you, again, are not having to go in and be doing all this admin work to make sure everyone's training is staying up to date. So I'm going to show you an example of how that looks in a real life system. Here we go, this is our required learning there. And I'm sorry, wasn't I asked for any questions? Okay, right. I'll just pause there. So what's the issue? I'm sorry.
Some people can't log into chat.
Okay, some people are having an issue logging into the chat. Now, how can we get those questions from anyone who's not in the chat? Okay, if you're not able to access the chat, I'm really sorry about that. You can send me an email. Let me just skip to our final slide here. That's my email address. You can contact myself, Matt Aspinall, matt@think-north.co.uk, or better still, contact my colleague Richard. He'll be able to address the questions. So he's richard@think-north.co.uk. So sorry if you can't get in the chat, but yeah, just drop us any questions you've got there, and if possible, we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. So let me just find where I was at there. Are there any questions in the chat right now that we should talk about? Okay, great. I see the chat's active, which is great, but I'm trying to figure out where we're at. But yeah, we'll take the questions at the end. Let me just skip ahead. There we are. Okay, so here's a live system screenshot of required learning set up in one of our organizations. It's just a test account showing how it looks. But that's the screen that your learners could actually see in a real situation. They just go to required learning and they see what training they need to complete. You can put the descriptions in there as well to help them understand what training it is. It's a really easy way to simplify it from the learner's point of view, which is great. And lastly, I want to talk about dashboards. Dashboards are actually a new feature in Total LMS with version 2.7. Now, Total has always had really great reporting capability, but like traditional learning management system reports, these are just spreadsheets essentially that we're going to pull from the system. We're going to pull a big database of all our people and where are they at with their training, and then we're going to have to distribute that appropriately to our managers. Now, we can do some clever stuff with that. We can make sure that managers only see employees who they need to see and so on, and distribute these across the organization. So there's always been, ways of simplifying it. But at the end of the day, you have always been viewing just a spreadsheet, which isn't a particularly good way, especially if you're in a hurry, for a manager to see how their team is doing with their training. So the new feature in Total LMS 2.7 are these dashboards and visual reporting. So I'll show you an example of how this would look. If we come into Mickey Mouse here, here's Mickey Mouse. And I'll take us back to our home page. I haven't said it's the home page. Here's a dashboard. And we'll go to the Acme Managers dashboard. So this is a dashboard that I've created, and it's just shared with managers in the organization. Only Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny are going to see this. Anyone else goes on there, they won't see it because they're not a manager. We could give them a different dashboard. We could show them their own training progress and how they're doing with things. But this is the information that's just relevant for a manager. So I've just put a few example reports in here. The first one is just a fun report, which is total course completions by animal. So using the attribute of what animal is this employee, we've been able to break down the graph so you can see how each individual department is doing. And yeah, I've used the word department. In reality, this could be departments, it could be physical site locations, it could be any way of slicing that data that makes it more meaningful for you. And I think that's what you want to think about with dashboards, is what do I actually need to see? Once I've pulled all of that data and I've started making my reports in Excel, which would have been the old way of doing it, what data am I actually trying to visualize? If we build it in a dashboard, we can share it across the organization. It's always up to date, and it's just a really easy way to monitor compliance on an ongoing basis. That example wouldn't really be relevant for a manager, but the two I've put at the side there, these are just looking at my team. So for Mickey Mouse, he's only seeing his employees, and he can see that of the induction program, he's got 75% of his team have completed it, but 25% of his team haven't completed it. If he looks at the mandatory training program, he can see that he's got 3 employees who've completed it, and he can see what scores they achieved. Now, if this is a manager with a real size team of more than 3 employees, a big team, we can simplify this. We could just say, let's just look at employees who completed this within the last 90 days. Or we could say, let's just see employees who didn't get the pass grade, something like that. So I can just really see, okay, this employee didn't get pass grade, I need to take action there. And with all of these reports, you're able to go and click report and view a bit more data. So here I can see, here's the employees, here's the date they were enrolled on the program, the date they completed it. So you can just get that little bit of extra data there. So it's a really nice way to share this. And I just want to show, if I log in as Bugs Bunny now, and we show Bugs Bunny's dashboard, he's going to see a similar thing. But for him, as expected, his team is different. He's just seen the data for Porky Pig and Daffy Duck. His team's progress is different, which is great. That's exactly what we would expect. This report in the center is just pulling in all data. I put that there as a sample, but his My Team ones, you can see, have updated. And this can scale to any size organization. This could go to every manager in your business. Every manager is going to see a dashboard of just their team and how they're doing. And I think this helps make it easy, because you can actually expect managers to act on this. Rather than having to centrally send reports to people and try and chase people, which may have been what you've been doing, you can just put that ownership on the managers, make it extremely easy for them to see what their team is doing, and then it's going to be easy for them to ask their team to complete it. If it's easy for the team to access the learning, which it is because we've assigned it appropriately through my required learning, then it's really easy for the employees to get it as well. I think this is what's really important, is that if we're trying to make compliance and mandatory training easy, it has to be easy for everybody, not just for the admin team. It has to be easy for the whole organization. Because one of the biggest challenges you're going to face when you're trying to push your mandatory training out through the organization is people aren't going to want to complete it. There's going to be resistance from people. We see this all the time in all of our organizations. There's always one group of employees who don't think they have the time for it. Well, if we make it as easy as possible, we do that by only assigning them the correct training. We make sure it's as simple as it needed to be. If they didn't need to attend face-to-face training, we gave them it through e-learning. We made it easy for them to access, and we made it easy for their managers to see how they're doing with it. I think if you think of every step of this process throughout the way, it's actually really easy to make it easy for everybody. Obviously, there's a lot of work in setting it up, but as long as you think about it, and hopefully some of the sort of ideas I've shared throughout this presentation have been helpful in showing you how to think about it and what you need to consider. If you work through that process, you actually find it's not that difficult to get it under control. I'm just going to switch back to my presentation and show you a dashboard here. This is an example of a live system dashboard. And as someone, okay, I've just got a message here saying it doesn't have to. Do you have to use blocks in dashboards is the question. That's one that's just been emailed in. Do you have to use blocks in dashboards? You can't pull in a sort of text report, one of the old style reports. You can't put that straight onto the dashboard. If I just switch over to my dashboard here, these have to be graphs. Now we can put other content in here. We can put any HTML content we like. So we can put, custom homepages and links and absolutely anything we want in there, videos, even if we need to, any content in there. But in terms of the reporting information, we just want to see the graphs, because this is kind of just supposed to be for the quick access stuff. For your other reports, we can either link to them from this screen, so we could just have a little page, just a little paragraph that's, here's the main reports that managers want to see. Here's report 1, report 2, report 3, report 4. That's an easy way of doing it. Or we can direct them to the My Reports page, or even pull in a My Reports little widget that just shows someone on this page every report that's available to them. So yeah, the dashboards are really geared towards having these graphs pulled in there. I hope that answers that question because it only came through email, so I can't follow up. Let me just switch back to the presentation and we'll just look at that real world example. Here's an example from a client system with anonymized data. But what we've done there is we've been able to pull out by department, like I did with the animals, by department, how many people are overdue for this training. And that makes it easy for you to know which areas to focus on and which areas to follow up with. There's a graph of monthly completions over the first 5 months of the year, and then there's that compliance chart as well, showing where everyone is at with their recertification. So it scales just as well to a live system as it does to this really simple demo system with just 7 employees. So hopefully that's been useful and interesting. I'm going to sort of open up for questions from the chat room. I know some of you are having trouble getting in there, which I'm sorry for. Richard, are there any questions from the chat to address right now? I will get myself into the chat room. Okay. Oh. And we've reached the end. Sure. Yeah, that's true. Just realised that there's a little bit of delay for those of you watching live, so I'll just get back to that questions slide there. But yeah, I hope that's been interesting. I'll just go back to the bullet points of what we talked through and just sort of summarise there. So the areas we looked at were audiences. That's making sure that we've assigned training on a simple way and appropriately, and we've used rules that make sense and push it to the correct people. The blend, that's making sure we're targeting it correctly, making sure that they're doing the right kind of learning. If they don't need to do the face-to-face, don't make them do the face-to-face, just give them e-learning. Certifications, they're a really powerful way to send refresher training just as it's needed. And that can be set up with reminders, so when someone's nearly due, they get that reminder telling them to go and do it, or when the training becomes available for refresher, they can get a notification telling them to do it. And then dashboards, I think these are the key to actually driving participation throughout your organization and getting managers engaged, making it easy for them to see what they need to know. And yeah, I think if you attack on every front there, it's actually not that difficult to get it under control.